Hey everyone, it's Alice, and you guys might have already seen on Twitter that Riot had invited me to the Riftbound summit last week, and I got to see, playtest, and ask a bunch of questions about Riftbound, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. People might already know that I have a pretty extensive background in trading card games. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid. I also played Magic for basically the last 20 years on and off, and I played Hearthstone. In fact, I'm the guy that made Handlock. I always wanted another TCG that could somehow match the itch of Magic, and nothing was really doing it. There was the Cookie Run TCG, which I tweeted about once upon a time, but that obviously fell by the wayside. So anyways, now enter Riftbound. I went into it completely blind. I did not know anything other than it was a Riot trading card game. What I can walk away from it thinking now, though, is that this card game might legitimately have more depth than Magic. The other cool thing about this is the barrier to entry is almost really not there. This is because, again, of the shuffle mechanic, making it very easy for people to play, and the fact that it's relatively simple to understand and just get into it. But because of all of those mechanics that the game has, and because of other cool things that you can do with like floating your rune and whatnot, it allows the players to have a lot of skill expression in the decisions that you have to make. All of the new art and the mechanics and the things that Riot has planned for it is absolutely amazing. So let's actually talk about some of those things. The gameplay is pretty interesting for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about that when we gloss over the unique mechanics of the game. Deck sizes are pretty similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! In that you have 40, and then you have a legend, which is really akin to like a planeswalker or a commander that you can use, but it can't be actually interacted with, killed, or removed, or anything like that. The legend, which is basically that planeswalker type thing that I was just mentioning, is the entire identity of whatever deck it is that you're playing. It's going to come with 2 colors, and those 2 colors make up what every single card in your deck must share. One of the things that I thought was really interesting as well is at this current point in time and at the League Summit, what I ended up seeing, I think, was 12 different Legend champions, but apparently there is more that will be revealed later on. I think Riot did a really good job at capturing the personality of the Legends that the cards are representing. So whether it be you're playing Volibear, Yasuo, Jinx, Victor, or what have you, I think that it's doing a really good job at encapsulating the personality, not necessarily what you do in League of Legends, the actual game, but rather what you would know about the champion if you follow anything of its lore. It also does seem like the game has the clearly defined archetypes of a trading card game. You have the aggro decks, you have the control decks, and you have the mid-range, and then you're going to have all the variants that follow. I will end up doing more videos on Riftbound in the future because after having played it for 5 hours at the summit, I then literally went home, played for 6 more hours, and then the next day I played for another 8 hours or something. I am loving this game. So because of that, I have full intention to actually travel to tournaments, and I've already talked to a lot of people that share similarly. One of the cool things that Riftbound is doing is it's going to have the 1v1 format, it's going to have a 2v2 format, it has a 4-player format, which is akin to Commander, and then this, I don't think, is going to be there right away, but it's going to have a 5v5 format. That is going to be 2 2v2 simultaneously and 1 1v1, and you're going to need to win 2 out of the 3 games in order to score a point. Anyways, the average game time seems to be anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes, and it is set for best of 3. Now, one of the worries coming from Magic and even experiencing other trading card games like Pokemon and even Cookie Run is, well, what happens if you run out of time? One of the amazing things that Riot ended up doing is they removed shuffling from the game. And so that reduces a lot of game time, and it also helps a lot of people that weren't really that experienced shufflers and could often end up eating a lot of their time away from actually just playing the game. And so it really does just feel like you're just getting to dive right in and games can happen quite rapidly. The plan at this current time from the questions that were ended up being asked is I think that a side deck or a sideboard is going to end up having 8 cards only. And then in addition to the main deck that you have a rune deck, which is basically your lands if you're coming from Magic, or your energy if you're from Pokemon. But if you've played Hearthstone or anything like that, this is your mana crystals. And at the start of every single turn, you're going to channel 2 runes to your field to be used as a resource, such as mana or energy. If you end up going second, then on your first turn only, you'll channel 3 runes. So Riftbound follows an ABCD format. A stands for Awaken, which in other card games would be your untap phase or getting everything ready. B is your beginning phase, which is basically your upkeep in other games, or your standby phase or something like that, right before your draw step. C stands for channel, which is the channeling of the runes to the board, and then D, obviously, for draw. After you end up doing your draw, your turn is one continuous phase. You can do whatever you want on your turn. You can attack however much you want, and you can cast spells, play units, and do whatever it is that you want. Spells in this game have different classifications of their speed, essentially. You have the normal spells, which, if you're coming from some other trading card games, are akin to sorcery speed, and those can only be cast on your turn when nothing else is really going on. Then a step up from that, you have action speed, which can be cast on your turn, but also in the middle of combat, so long as it's combat that is going on. Then, one step above action is reaction, which can also be cast on the opponent's turn and during your turn in response to anything that's happening. Tapping as a mechanic is also inside of the game. If you've played any other card games, then this is probably not unfamiliar to you. Tapping, however, in this game is known as exhausting, and that's going to be the same for your units, and it's going to be the same for your runes. Exhausted in other games is akin to summoning sickness, so you just can't do something right away. If you're from Hearthstone, normally a unit with haste or charge could just go right away. Let's go over some of the terms that are going to be unique to Riftbound. So we've already addressed channeling, which is the channeling of your runes, and that is basically pulling from the rune deck, putting it onto your field to later be used as a resource. You have exhausting, which is akin to tapping, again, from other games. There's classifications of different types of cards. You have units, which are basically your creatures. You have champions, which are also units, but just a different classification. And then you have legends, which again are the planeswalker that you can use on your turn, interact with, and do all this other fun stuff that makes up the core identity of the deck. In addition to this, you also have gears, which gears are akin to moxes, basically, from Magic. They're these special artifact type things that you can use as almost like a token that doesn't really go away. Just imagine yourself being able to use a tool, or in Pokemon, maybe a stadium or something like that, and you're able to generate effects from it. The other thing going on inside of this game are the two battlefields, and that's going to be how you end up winning the game, is by accumulating 8 points. But you can't go from 7 to 8 points just by conquering one battlefield. You need to do 2 simultaneously, or you need to successfully manage a hold. The way that you get points inside of Riftbound is by conquering a battlefield for the very first time that turn, or by successfully holding onto a battlefield for an entire turn. You'll be awarded the hold point at the very start of your next turn. You have your legend, and that's where they're just going to end up sitting, and next to your legend, you're able to choose a champion from the legend's matching color inside of your deck and basically place it next to the legend to be cast at a later turn whenever you deem fit. This is very akin to companions in Magic the Gathering. To the left or a little bit north of where your legend and champion are, that's where the 2 battlefields are going to be placed. In a best of 1, the 3 battlefields that you selected to bring with your deck are going to be randomized and randomly selected. In a best of 3, however, you get to choose which battlefield you want to start each game with, and then once you use that one, you can't use it for the remaining games. Below the battlefield zone is your base, and when you move units from a battlefield back there, that's called a recall, just like in League of Legends. Below your base is your rune zone, and that's where all your runes end up going. And to the left of all of this is where all the points can be tracked, going from 0 to 8. Below your legend and the champion is the deck zone and obviously the trash. Another mechanic that is inside of this game is the recycle feature, which if you play Cookie Run TCG, you might be a little bit familiar with. Recycling can mean one of 2 things. Either your card ends up requiring you to recycle a rune, in which case you take a rune and you place it in the order that you want, if you're doing multiple runes, at the very bottom of your rune deck. If you're recycling to your main deck, then you would take a card from your trash or somewhere else that tells you to, and you would put it at the very bottom of your deck in any order that you want. For your runes, you can have any combination of the 2 colors of your legend. You could have 10 of one color and 2 of the remaining, or you could just have 12 of just one color, which, yes, there are some decks like that. So when you're looking at a card, what exactly are you looking at? At the very top left, there's a number, and that number tells you how much mana or runes you need to pay in order to be able to play that card. At the top right, you might notice an attack symbol or a shield symbol, and that is a unit's might. Might in this game is referred to both its attack and its toughness, or its attack and defense, and that is how you know how much damage that unit champion can take and how much it can dish out. Sometimes below the cost is going to be the rune cost, and what this ends up meaning when you see this on a card is it tells you that's how many runes you need to recycle in order to play that card in addition to its mana cost. If you see on this card that it has 1 rune below it, then it means that as you play this card, you must take one of your runes, can be exhausted or not, and then put it to the very bottom of your rune deck. One of the ways to get around this right now inside of the game is by all of the gears, which can actually be used to pay the rune cost of cards. Once a unit ends up attacking a battlefield, it becomes exhausted unless otherwise stated, and it assigns its damage first to whatever defending units are there, if any, and that is referred to as a showdown. Showdown actually happens regardless of if your opponent has any units there or not, and because a showdown happens as a trigger, it allows the opponent to react to it. Another thing to mention in this game is priority, which everyone knows from other TCGs, is often referred to also as the word focus in Riftbound. Damage at the end of each player's turn resets everything that happened to any champion or unit. The attack of a unit's might cannot be reduced during a turn, but you can obviously hit it over and over. If you manage to bring the might below 0 for its defense or life, then you end up destroying the unit and it goes to the grave. Legends are a bit unique in that, again, they make up the identity of your deck. In addition to that, they have a static ability that really defines how you're trying to go about playing your deck. Champions are very akin to units, but they often obviously have a lot more flavor going on and typically have a lot more abilities, and they're going to be all the things that you recognize from League of Legends. There is no limit to how many of one champion you can have on the field at this point in time, so if you want to have multiples of Victor, you go right ahead. Some of the stuff that I got to personally ask questions about to Riot directly is there is going to be really cool things coming. The game is going to have a sealed variant, it's going to have a draft variant, you're going to have all different alternate arts for some of the cards, and for the collectors and people that like to invest and all that other good stuff, there's also going to be Omega Chase cards. Also, one question that I was very curious about, because almost no TCG has managed to capture this essence of it, but apparently a PvE mode is more of a when, not an if. One of the things that I did ask about, and I think at this current point in time with the way that the release schedule is going, is that you cannot play cards from other languages. So everyone might know that there are going to be multiple languages of the card game. And just like in some other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, you are not going to be allowed to use other card languages, but that might change in the future. Sealed and Draft have some different variations and rules. Just like in Magic, you're going to build a deck from 6 packs. You're not going to be required to have a legend, and even if you do have a legend, however, you are going to be allowed to have more than 2 colors in the deck. That is going to differ from every other format. Some people did ask questions about potential 3-color legends in the future, allowing you to make 3-color decks, and I think that that's a possibility. The big question that people might have for me is, does the game actually have legs? And I think absolutely it does. You guys might have seen on my Twitter, I've already had a bunch of pro players that I've met up with, and I played it a ton with Whippo, who was actually in the other room right now playing it as well. And so the game absolutely is extremely fun, engaging, and it has a lot of replayability. And this is just a vanilla, this is like alpha or beta. Possibilities are going to be crazy because it already gives that same itch that Magic gives. Finally, Riot has given me a way to talk about a different card game that's not Magic when also complaining about draft and other things in League of Legends.